Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I am Amanda Lopez. I work in growth here at Ably. Some of you are already existing users. Some of you might be new to Ably. So just to give a short primer, Ably has spent years making real-time infrastructure boring in the best possible way, which is to say the kind of boring where it's fast, it's reliable, your engineers can stop thinking about it. And we're now applying that same thinking to AI and the critical need for keeping AI experiences stable when they meet real users in production. So someone who's really been on the front lines of that is our speaker today, Fiona Corden. She is our technical product manager, and she has been focused squarely on AI transport. She's put together a highly visual session for us today. But before we get started, I just wanted to sum up a few notes. We are recording this session, so again, you'll get a copy of this probably sometime next week. In the chat throughout, you can feel free to ask questions. We'll collect and answer at the end. And then just before closing, we'll have an optional poll that's presented to you. You can choose to answer it if you wish. And so with that, I will pass the torch over to Fiona.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. And it's great to see so many people here today. As Amanda said, just drop questions in the chat as we go. We'll get to them at the end just as things occur to you. So what we're going to talk about today is durable sessions. So what even are they? Why does your UX break without them, and what can you do about it? So the thesis of this talk is that AI products are being let down by the user experience rather than the model itself. The frontier models are now so good that capability for most use cases has gone as a concern. And there's still work to do for some people around organizing their internal data sources, maybe training specialized custom models, really finessing the harness and the system prompts, but those are quite well understood problems. And the issue now is the mismatch between the user expectations and what a lot of AI products are able to deliver. And that often comes down to the delivery layer, the transport between the agent and the client. And that's what this talk is about. So over the last 6 to 9 months, we've spoken to engineering and product teams at more than 40 companies across 10 industries who are all shipping AI agents, assistants, co-pilots in their products to users at scale. And they're all running into the same kinds of problems as they push the boundaries of what AI products can feel like. So in this talk, I'm going to share what we've learned from them, the patterns, both for what breaks and what the companies who don't break look like, and the way that teams are working to deliver AI products that hold up under realistic conditions. So what I'll do is I'll talk through the user experience that you get today, like what your user sees, but also what your business sees. We'll have a look at the vision, what can a great UX look like, and then I'll talk through the session layer and durable sessions. What actually is it that we're proposing people do, and what does that mean for your product? What should you do differently as a result of this? So starting off, what is your user experience? The most common one that I'm sure we've all encountered is the failure where you get a drop session. Something causes the connection between you and the agent to break down, and now you're left looking at nothingness. I have a personal gripe with AI products where not only do I lose the response or the part of the response I had, but I also lose my prompt. Now I have to try and remember what it was I asked for. And those connection drops can come from anywhere, right? The network change, something going to sleep because you left your laptop running and now it's going to sleep. Corporate proxies quite often close idle streaming connections. So if your agent's been working for a while, maybe the proxy is going to shut it down. But the point is that this can come from anywhere, right? It's a routine event that needs to be handled. The second one is where something goes wrong on the agent side, and the user doesn't really get any feedback to know not only has something gone wrong, but what can I do about it? Do I sit and hope that eventually this spinner is going to resolve? Do I start again? Do I hit the cancel button? Is that going to have any effect? It just leaves them with a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty never builds a good user experience. One that's quite common in CX organizations where you have a support chatbot is that something happens that means the chatbot gets to the end of its available road. Maybe it's exercised all the options it has. Maybe the user is dissatisfied. Maybe the user said something that means that it needs to be flagged for human attention. And you get passed through to the human who has no idea what's happened, and you have to repeat the whole thing again. It's incredibly frustrating. So this is quite a common one in these scenarios. But sometimes it's not that a completely new person, like a human support agent, joined the chat. Sometimes it's you on a new tab, on a new device. You want to be able to pick up not just the history of previous conversations or previous interactions you've had, but the one that's ongoing at the moment. Can I check on my long-running task from my phone? Can I interact with that agent on that phone? Rather than being confined to this specific tab where you started the conversation. And then building on that idea of interacting from another device, there's also being able to interact while the AI is doing something. So we've spoken to companies who say, well, actually, while the model's generating a response, you can't do anything. You can't cancel it, you can't send any message, nothing, because it's too difficult. And that's really frustrating for the user, particularly if they can see that the AI is going off track. Maybe they asked the wrong question, maybe the AI's made an assumption at some point that is now going to give the wrong answer. And they're just stuck watching it happen, and they can't make it. Those are the things they're seeing today, but there's also what happens next. We're building out the capabilities of AI agents all the time and the agentic experiences. People are going to start asking for things like multi-user. I'm planning a holiday with your holiday planning AI agent. Well, I want to invite my partner to this chat so we can both see the options together. I'm using your co-pilot and I've changed view. I want your agent to spot that I've changed view and to just adjust what it's doing based on what's happening without me explicitly telling it. And I want to be able to decide whether some long-running task continues when I close the laptop or whether it cancels itself, which is a difficult decision for the agent to make, because did the connection severing mean that the user has left and doesn't care, or did it mean they still want this answer and I should keep working? And these things are already showing up as business costs today. So if we look at some surveys that have come out, these are all from the past 18 months. We've got industry stats saying, 75% of customers frustrated by AI customer service. Salesforce with YouGov, 72% of consumers trust companies less than they did a year ago, which is actually the lowest trust level in 8 years. And it's hard to imagine that that's not related to the increase in AI deployment, particularly in customer service. Gartner found that 59% of consumers say AI-driven customer experience is going in the wrong direction, which is very much in tension with the fact that a lot of companies are being driven to deploy more AI. As a cost-saving measure, as an efficiency measure, so that they can save their human support agents for the calls and the interactions that really matter. So the gap between what companies want and what consumers get and what want to get, it is getting wider. So these are the kind of the macro signals. Users are generally not shy about complaining about AI. So these are composites that we've drawn from public review platforms, but the themes were very consistent across all the different categories. We see people complaining about the context-blind handoff, where the agent doesn't know what's happening, refreshing the page and losing the whole conversation, getting halfway through something and the agent just stopped responding. This is an interesting one because it had to call the helpline. So your AI agent was supposed to to deflect calls to the helpline, but actually people are still calling in when the agent fails. And the multi-device consumer expectations are that I'm used to the cloud. I'm used to everything being in sync all the time. Why are my interactions with this AI not the same as that? Particularly when AI is supposed to be the cutting edge in the future. And you're probably already seeing this in your internal dashboards for your product. Are there differences in the engagement you're getting between features that are AI driven and features that are non-AI driven? And the way you can tell whether the problem is the model or the delivery layer is by looking at the CSAT and filtering out the response ones. Are there any themes in what's left? Are there repeated problems that people keep hitting? Are there things that are interesting about the way your users are interacting with sessions? Short, repeated sessions with a very short gap. Maybe it's engagement. Maybe it's someone who keeps losing context and has to keep starting again. And that tends to lead to frustration, and you end up almost with a non-signal, which is that people just stop using it. They engage once and they don't come back, or they don't come back for a long time. Or maybe they engage once and then every interaction you have with them after that, particularly in something like a support context, is over the phone or is by email. So the data is probably here. So that's the kind of the doom and gloom, if you like. What's bad? What's broken? What can this actually look like? So when we spoke to our cohort of research, our customers, our interested companies, there were a few themes that showed up as being things that really were consistent in people who were delivering the next level in AI experience. And the first one, the kind of table stakes, if you like, is the ability to survive disconnections and just always have resilient delivery. So no matter what happens in the real world, your user sees everything that's happened. And they not only see that on the device where they started the conversation, they see that across all their devices, all their tabs, and they're able to move around and interact in a way that feels natural and is consistent with the way that the rest of their digital life behaves. And the final one is the ability to see what's happening now, to have updates, to have that reassurance, that presence that tells you, yes, the agent is working, it's making progress, this is what it's doing. But also the bidirectional control, the ability to interrupt mid-task, to give it a redirection, to send a follow-up before you've waited for the whole of the previous job to complete. So that needs some kind of channel for the client to be able to interact with the agent. So what can that look like in practice? So I've got a demo to show that explores the level of user experience you can provide just by changing the transport layer. So this is built on the Vercel AI SDK, which has a plugin point for developers to provide their own transport layer to replace the default HTTP and SSE implementation. So all we've done is just switch that out for durable sessions layer. But that's the only thing we've changed, right? We haven't deployed additional infra. There's no server-side buffering code, nothing like that. This is all just happening over the session. Now, no one wants to waste their time watching me try to appease the demo gods, so I'm going to show a screen recording rather than live action. But I want to be very clear, this is not smoke and mirrors. This is something we have really built and is working. I'd encourage you to reach out either to the Ably team for a call or to check out our docs and repos if you want to see these working for yourself. Okay, so what we have here is a pretty classic AI chat interface. We're doing AI support chat for an electronics shop, and there's a bit of back and forth. The agent does a client-side tool call to get the user's location, and then some server-side tool calls to get information to answer its question. And we can see if we open a new tab with the same user, we can see that out of the box, these are in multiple tabs. They're in sync. They've got a shared view of the session. And now when we start getting a streamed response, we see that as the output comes from the agent, both of the tabs are keeping in sync. So it's not just the completed responses, it's the in progress ones. And we've refreshed the tab on the right and it's just caught up. And even if we force it to disconnect from the network, every time it reconnects, you'll see that it catches up and then automatically stays in sync. And I want to repeat here, there's no server-side buffering code here. I haven't deployed Redis or anything like that. This is all just running through the durable session there. And we're also able to interact from multiple tabs. So now from the second tab, we're going to kick off a research agent. And we see that appear in both tabs. And actually from the first tab, we still have, because we're the same user, we have the ability to interact with it, and we can cancel that agent and stop what it's doing and give it a refined prompt to work with. And these agents, they're outputting directly into the chat. So the orchestrator has kicked off a sub-agent to do the research. The research agent is just sending its updates to the chat. It isn't having to go through the centralized orchestrator to manage this and to send the responses. Now the user decided, okay, I'm going to go buy these headphones, but I'm also at the same time, I would like to cancel my existing order. So now we've got two requests in flight at the same time, each of them being handled by a separate sub-agent. And you'll see that the output from each one stays together in the chat. So we know when we scroll back through the conversation, we can see this was the output that came from each of these events, what the task that the sub-agent did, and the resolution that it sent. And that's, again, being fully coordinated and synchronized without any work from the orchestrator. So if we decide that maybe our user isn't happy with the return process, and so they want to speak to a human user, so we can add another participant into this session. So this isn't another instance of the user. This is a separate person, the support agent, but they've joined and they've got the full history. So they're able to see exactly what's happened, what the problem is, and jump into helping the user straight away and talk to the customer without having to have them repeat their problem and say anything that's already happened. Okay, so that was our demo. And I said that we created that demo by dropping in a new transport layer. But what do I actually mean by that? So when we think about AI products, we generally think about the communication between the agent and the client. Now, behind the agent, you're going to have some kind of model that's providing the responses and tools that the agent can call. And your agent orchestration, I mean, it could be anything, right? I use Vercel in this example. It could be LangGraph. It could be calling OpenAI's API directly, whatever it is you're doing within the agent. And you might also have a durable execution layer, something like Temporal, to make sure that that agent workflow is crash proof. But between the agent and the client, there's a direct connection. Now, it might be HTTP, SSE streaming, it might be WebSockets, so you've got some bidirectionality. But the key thing is that it's coupled to the single request that the user has made. And so there's effectively a private pipe between one browser tab and one agent process. And so the failures we discussed are what happens when the session is just living in this pipe, because the health of that pipe is controlled by the health of the two ends, right? If one of them goes offline or crashes, then the whole session state is lost. And it isn't a shared resource. It's point to point. And so new clients, new agents, they can't communicate to provide input, and they can't receive the in-progress responses. They can only get the responses if they're reading them from somewhere else, for example, a database. So a pattern that we're seeing many companies adopt is basically decoupling the agent from the client, and doing this with a concept that we're calling durable sessions. And so the idea is a durable session is a shared resource that sits between the agent and the client. It's a persistent, stateful medium through which the agent and the client interacts. So this makes it much easier to build a resilient streaming experience that works across multiple tabs and also across multiple agents, because people can join and leave, but the durable session is there all the time. And it also means that we can expand our expectation of what the session state is. So it isn't just the conversation log, the set of prompts that have been set by the user and the responses from the agent. It can also be the history of tool calls, it could be presence, and it can be the shared structured state that we want to keep between the agent client to give context. And here I don't mean context as in what you push to the LLM or the model, although there's probably an overlap. This is the context about what's happening in your client's session with that agent. So what's my client currently looking at on their screen? What have they clicked on? Have they made any updates to the page that we're working with at the moment if you're in some kind of Copilot app? So all that state can be synced. And because it's not tied to that connection, multiple agents, multiple clients can all be working at the same time. And so having added that durable session layer and extended that state continuity, now we're able to give much more capability to start addressing the problems we talked about before. So everybody always has an up-to-date view of what's happening. Everybody's able to see what's happening with their sub-agents or with multiple agents working and coordinating without having to go through an orchestrator. If you join immediately or if you join late, you still get the same view of the session, not just what's happened, but the order in which it happened and grouped based on the requests that were made. We have that bidirectional control, that ability to interrupt the agent, to actually give it positive input rather than it just having to infer based on whether or not the connection is up, what it should be doing. And based on that presence, we can actually start making more interesting decisions. So, for example, if the user is away, the agent might think, well, I could deprioritize this work, or I've finished, I could send them a push notification to let them know what's happened. And if the agent goes away, the client code can give the users some more information about, well, is it coming back? Has it come back online? Is it restarting? So that you don't end up staring into the void of the spinner and wondering what you should be doing. And to be clear, this isn't a rewrite of your AI application, right? All that's happened here is that we've added the durable session between the agent and the client instead of whatever connection was there before. We haven't changed the agent code. We haven't changed how it interacts with the model, the prompt harness, none of that. That has all been the same. Okay, well, that's great, Fiona, but what does that actually mean for me? Well, the first thing to do is to decide for you and your product, is there even a problem here? And if there is a problem, what shape is it? What of the qualities about the durable session layer are going to solve the problems that you have? And what's your data telling you? Speak to your engineering teams. You might find that they're already building a durable session layer piece by piece. And if you have multiple products, you run the risk, you also have multiple teams building multiple different durable session layers that are going to need to be supported. So that's the state of play. Now, where are you trying to get to? What are the experiences that you are trying to build over the next 6 months, do you think, in your product? Which of them are going to be difficult? Which are the ones that engineering are thinking, oh, I really hope you don't ask me for that? I spoke to someone a couple of weeks ago who said, oh yeah, I've seen our UI designers put a cancel button in and they seem to think it's trivial, and it's weeks of engineering work to make the back end work. These are the kinds of things that will surface where the gaps are and where a durable session might be the right solution. And then finally decide, do you want to continue building it yourself? Is that going to be sufficient? Or do you need to be moving to some kind of dedicated platform that will scale with what you're doing and give you that consistency and that standardization across your organization? Okay, that was the end of what I was going to talk about. I'm going to just pull the chat up to have a look at any questions. This slide talks about the has links to Ably's implementation of a durable session, and kind of talks about durable sessions in general, what they are. If you want to talk in more detail about your particular product, then you can reply to the email that you got when you registered to book a call, or look on our website. So I've got a question in the chat. How do durable sessions relate to durable execution? So this is a good one. They're aiming to address different concerns. So durable execution is about making the agent resumable and making sure that your workflow continues. Whereas durable sessions is about making the client conversation resumable. So your agent can be resumable, but if your client doesn't know what to do when the agent has crashed, or if things go wrong when the connection between them breaks down, then you still haven't solved the full problem. So they're complementary. They're looking at different parts of the space. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a quick drink. Okay, I've got another one. Do I get this functionality with the Vercel or Cloudflare durable execution frameworks? Yes, to some degree you do, in that they have capabilities that, because they've made this session addressable in its own right, then a returning user, a restarting agent, they can navigate to the session because they've got that address and because they know to get there. But the full UX that you can deliver with a durable session isn't there yet, right? Managing the structured state that you want to share between the client and the server, seeing presence, supporting potentially multimodal connections, coordinating multiple agents in a single session. Those kind of things aren't addressed by those frameworks, because they are working on one particular workflow at a time. Do you integrate with Temporal? So we are in the process of putting together an integration for Temporal. We have demos and tests working. We're just in the state of putting together the documentation to share that with both our community and with the Temporal community. Are there any open source frameworks to get started with if I want to use this approach? So this is going to depend on how your app will be architected. If you're hosted on Vercel, for example, the Vercel Workflow SDK is a good start. There's also Electric SQL has a durable session concept. They're a local first database. So depending on what your requirements are, then those might meet your needs. Obviously, Ably is not open source, but I will advertise we have a free tier that gives you plenty of usage. So if you want to just play around and see what durable sessions can do for your application, that is absolutely a possibility. All right. Well, we just gone 1/2 past. That's the end of the questions that we've got at the moment. If anything else occurs to you, feel free to get in touch afterwards. As Amanda says, there will be a poll which has just popped up. It's optional, but we would appreciate your feedback on what we said today. And as always, feel free to get in touch if you have any further questions or if you would like more information about anything we discussed here. Thank you very much.